Good evening, everyone. Not surprisingly, on this fairly beautiful March day, we have a fairly light turnout, but we appreciate those of you who are here for joining us. My name is Ann Savage. I'm the president of the school board here in the City School District of Albany. On behalf of the board, I welcome you to our meeting. The audio from tonight is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to the general public on our Board Docs platform. If you would like to address the board in public comment period tonight, now is the time to make sure that you have signed up on the sheet on the table, which is generally over there, I believe. That table also holds hard copies, paper copies of the materials we will be discussing tonight, which you are welcome to take. We also have provided digital devices, which will allow you to access the documents electronically. Or you can do that from your own device. You just need to get to albanyschools.org/BOE, and you'll find a big old button that'll take you to the agenda and documents for tonight. Those of you who would choose to say the Pledge of Allegiance with us are welcome to do that at this time. I pledge allegiance
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In addition to saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we always focus our meeting by restating the mission of the City School District of Albany, which is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us?
I do. Thank you so very much, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to begin my report tonight with a quick shout out to the Albany High School girls basketball team. The Lady Falcons are competing in the Section 2 Class AA semifinals at this very moment, taking on Shin at Hudson Valley Community College. Coach Decky Lawson and his team had a great win over Niskayuna in the quarterfinals last week, and we are thinking positively for them tonight. We are monitoring all guidance and recommended precautions related to the COVID-19 virus on an ongoing basis. We shared a communication with our families and school community earlier this week and are continuing to closely follow all developments. As we do with all health-related matters, we will continue to follow the guidance of the state and county health departments. We will also follow the guidance of the State Education Department and Capital Region BOCES for the development of readiness plans to address potential homebound instruction needs for students. That will include plans to provide access to instructional resources and course instruction should the district need to close for an extended period of time. Our public focus at this time is doing all that we can to help control the spread of illness. Our maintenance staff has placed a high priority on cleaning and sanitizing high contact areas of all of our buildings, and we have asked our principals to make sure that students are able to wash their hands before lunch each day. Over the next few weeks, we will also be installing hand sanitizer dispensers in high traffic areas at each school. We know that this is important, and we ask that our staff and students and families are patient as we get those orders in and work on that installation. We have copies of our letter to our families available here tonight. That includes additional information and resources, and we will continue to provide updates as developments necessitate. I had the opportunity to join Mayor Sheehan for the news conference this morning at Schuyler Achievement Academy to discuss the importance of the upcoming U.S. Census. For our school and our district and our city, more than $600 billion is at stake nationally, and it is critical for our community to make sure that every resident is counted and that Albany receives its share of that funding. Albany's goal is to surpass 100,000 residents officially for the first time since 1990. Achieving that would provide our city and our school district with access to important federal dollars that would allow us to maintain and expand programs that serve our students and families. Please watch your mailboxes at home for information from the Census Bureau beginning next week. The census opens online next Thursday, March 12th, which will kick off a major public effort to make sure we all count for Albany. You may visit albanycounts.com for more information about the census process in Albany. There are also excellent full and part-time jobs associated with the census available in Albany and throughout the capital region. For more information about these opportunities, please visit 2020census.com/jobs. We will continue our budget development process this evening with a presentation and discussion about our current status. And also, I would like to remind everyone that we have 3 community budget presentations coming up this month. We will host public budget meetings on the following days: next Monday at Myers Middle School, Tuesday at O'Neill Middle School, and Monday, March 16th at Hackett Middle School. Each meeting will be from 6 to 7 p.m. They will all contain the same information based on tonight's presentation. Please remember to pick up a flyer here tonight with more information about these meetings. I hope that you will be able to attend and participate in this important process. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Albany High School English teacher Juan Oliveira for achieving her profession's Gold Standard Award. She is nationally board certified. She is now one of the 25 teachers district-wide who have earned this prestigious certification. The pathway to national certification is very rigorous. It takes up to 3 years and requires teachers to submit 4 portfolio entries, including video recordings of classroom activities and examples of student work. Candidates must also pass an assessment that is specific to their certification area. I also would like to congratulate 2 of our board-certified teachers who have earned renewals: Stephen and Harriet Myers Middle School technology teacher Melissa Hurt, and Pine Hills Elementary School 4th grade teacher Jessica Short. These are exceptional accomplishments, and I salute our teachers' hard work and their commitment to their profession and their students. Let's give them a round of applause. I am looking forward to joining Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Instruction, Lori McKenna, and the members of our Pupil Personnel Services Department at the College of St. Rose tomorrow for a regional conference on reducing chronic absenteeism. The conference will be led by the New York State Community Schools Technical Assistance Center. I am also excited to let you know that our PPS staff will be among the presenters. Our team will offer a lunch and learn session focused on our own work in supporting the social and emotional needs of our students. That work centers on designing predictive, supportive, trauma-informed environments with a focus on building and maintaining relationships. We are investing in professional development around crisis response, behavioral supports, and the effects of trauma on behavior. I am looking forward to attending this conference to learn more about the best practices that other organizations are implementing successfully, and in order to share out our progress on these areas as well. At this time, I would like Principal Comerford to come forward and tell us about some of the exciting things that we have happening here at Albany High School.
Good evening. There we go. Thank you, Board President, Board Superintendent Adams, and Cabinet for inviting Albany High School here this evening. Joining me tonight is Leasia Green. She is a Discovery senior, and she is also our class of 2020 Vice President. She has been in the drama club here at the high school since her freshman year, and actually just came out of rehearsal for Cabaret. Which is well into production, and we welcome you all to join us next weekend for the musical production of that. Leasia is going to speak at the end when we talk about some of Albany High's successes, but just a little bit more about her. She is already accepted to SUNY Plattsburgh and is still looking into some other colleges right here at home, UAlbany. In addition to drama, she has done lacrosse, yearbook club, Falcon Council, cheerleading, in addition to wanting to become an elementary teacher, which makes us all really happy to have our Albany High students interested in the field. All right, so we are So as the board president read the district's vision and mission, I will not read this to you, but we did a lot of work at Albany High School revising our vision and mission last year when we were designated a school in good standing. At that time, the vision and mission was very focused on receivership, and we wanted to follow the district's new vision and mission and make sure that we were under that umbrella of the work. So here is Albany High School's vision and mission, and we really worked hard on this to think about being a school in good standing and how do we keep improving. And within that, the focus was very much on college and career readiness. And how do we do that through the academy's structure and getting back to that, specifically thinking about the rebuild of Albany High School and that project, and really getting back to students' academies being aligned with the college and career fields that they would like to go into, or in experimenting with which fields they'd like to go to. So you see in there this, we added in the community partners, and then how do we empower students in those 4 areas under the academy for creators, innovators, civic and global leaders of the future. And then our mission, really, how do we meet our academic and social needs of students? We really saw that as a missing piece, the social emotional needs of students, and it's something that we are consistently working on in addition to academics, and how do we keep that as part of the mission of the school. Our goals are aligned with our SEP plan for Albany High School. So our progress monitoring seniors, not only seniors, but that is one of our major goals through the SEP plan. All grade levels through the RTI process to increase our graduation rate. Increasing English and math measurement interval progress for all student subgroups. So that is our Regents exams for all of our English and math classes. Increasing and diversifying enrollment in upper level courses, world languages, and CTE pathways. Decreasing student behavior that interferes with instruction, and then decreasing our discipline referrals and suspensions. Those really go hand in hand, but the decreasing behavior that interferes with instruction was taken right from our DITSE survey, which was across the board with all stakeholders. So that was really important to our building leadership team. And then decreasing chronic absenteeism rate, which we have some folks from the high school from that committee going to the conference tomorrow as well. This is our school administrative team. So myself, the principal, and Mr. Gilmore, and then Ms. Marquez, our Brooklyn Career and Technical Center principal, and then we have our 4 academy principals and their assistant APs. And just a note on this, the new building really finished the social support suite that we have in each academy. We were only able to do that in the high school in 2 of the academies before, just because of the office space. So now all 4 academies are afforded the wraparound services and a home base for all students. So in those academies, in addition to the administrative staff, we have our homeschool coordinator, our psychologist, our social worker, our 2 guidance counselors, all in one space. And even in speaking with students and staff over the 2 weeks, those academies that did not have that have already seen the improvement. And you see students are like, everybody's here, you know, so it's such a great wraparound service for students that we really don't realize how much of an impact it has. All right, school demographics. So in the day program at the high school, we're at 2,182 students. At our night program, we have about 172 students, and that's increasing as the year goes on, for a total of 2,354 students. So that does not include the Albany International Center or Clement Center, which do count towards all of our numbers in accountability. Our students with disabilities, I'm going to stay on this one for a second. We have 311 students in the day program and 26 students in the night program. Our ELL students is 221 on campus, and we have 1,256 economically disadvantaged students. I did include on here, is this the pointer? Oh, that's definitely not it. I got it. So right here, students are in alternative placement programs. So there's a lot of students who may be out of district placed or in other alternative programs that also account for Albany High School's accountability. And I just put the graphs in there to kind of give you a picture of our demographics of our, we are about 50% black students, about 20% white students. Our Hispanic is about 16%, Asian at 8, and I can barely, what do we have here? Multiracial, the eye was getting me. So just to kind of get a look at the demographic of the high school, which is really important when I talk about scheduling later, and then our economically disadvantaged students at 62%, and non is at almost 38%. I broke out here for you with demographics. As I stated, we have about 311 day students. We probably are usually around 350 students in our special ed population. And just here so you could see the number of self-contained classes that we have. Our alternative assessment students, so those are the NYSA sections you see highlighted. And then our grade 9 self-contained and 10th grade self-contained students. There are other self-contained sections, but these are ones that we've teamed teachers on. So those teachers for the Regents-bound students, which are the 9 and 10 students here, have the same teachers for their 4 core areas. And those teachers get to team, so it's really a lot of support for those students. Prior to doing, and they are housed for those core classes at Brooklyn for a few different reasons. Prior to when I was an academy principal and I took over the special ed liaison as one of my collateral responsibilities, our pass rates for our self-contained 9th and 10th graders were over a few years 30 to 50%. We have had, since we started this support with all of the kids in the same area, and then that slow gradual transition into the main building, we have been at 70% the last 2 years for pass rates for those students, which is so much different and such a big accomplishment, and we're getting them to graduate now. The other piece to that, which is great for students who may not be college bound, they really get to audit the career and technical center classes there, which they have to start in 10th grade. So it's a great way for them to see all the opportunities there and leave with a career upon graduation. All right, so our SEP focus and highlights. So we highlighted 3 here: our graduation rate, our absenteeism, and our ELA and math performance. Graduation rate, you know, we've done a lot of work in the last few years around RTI process and monitoring students. So we really start that work at the beginning of the school year. Absenteeism, trying to decrease our students who face hardships with absenteeism, and how do we give them intervention strategies to get them to school. And then our ELA and math Regents classes. So some challenges with these 3 areas, specifically with graduation rate, is our 4, 5, and 6-year cohort seniors who face hardships. So we really started a lot of work with that. It's really kind of a 2-3 year cycle with this. So when I came into the chair as principal, we realized that we have a lot of students that we carry still because they have not transferred to another school or program. And so last year, we identified who those students were, and we started outreach to all of them in January as the same that we did this year. And how could we find students who were close to graduating for this school year, and those who didn't have enough credits to do so, what alternative programs could we place them in? So we started that again, actually on January 3rd this year. And we had about 125 students, and we did a lot of wrap around services, outreach, home visits for those students. So I listed their continue operation graduation initiatives. Just if you want a little bit of data, over the February break, we actually visited 65 of those families out of the 125. And we found that probably about a dozen of them have already graduated. So, and then we have about a half a dozen who we know have transferred to other places, and we're continuing to work on that daily to increase the graduation rate. Some other things that we do with Operation Graduation, that is started in October. We take about that first month to kind of get all systems in place for the school itself. But then weekly RTI meetings start, and we hold weekly RTI meetings by academy for seniors, and then that continues throughout the school year. All right, chronic absenteeism. So challenge is definitely the new regulation around chronic absenteeism and the 10 days. So that is really difficult in students that we have a hard time locating at the start of the school year. So we're going to be thinking about that more over the summer this year, and how do we do the same kind of outreach we just did in February. And we already do some of those things, but it's going to have to be more intense for this school year. And really, along with chronic absenteeism is student hardships. So, you know, even in speaking about the students that we're having a hard time getting here, and the senior students, some of the hardships that students face some are beyond our control. Some it's transient moves, and then just everything that we're trying to help students navigate, from homelessness to human trafficking. So there's so many different things that, you know, our social workers, our psychologists, our homeschool coordinators are trying to navigate in getting students to school. So we have a lot of attendance initiatives here. We do hold a weekly attendance meeting with all 4 of the academy principals and the homeschool coordinators. And so we're looking at data in that meeting weekly. And students are assigned a caseworker through those meetings. We have a lot of initiatives where we do outreach. We do saturate the streets once per quarter. Tap it to class initiative. So if you visit here during the day, you hear the music, that's the cue to get to class on time. Our daily robocalls, teacher calls, and tracking sheets for some students. Even though we have School Tool and students can look on that sheet, there's something about showing their parent that every teacher signed that class. And when I first came to the high school from elementary world, I said, teenagers aren't going to, like that. And a lot of kids really need that reassurance on a daily basis. ELA and math. So the challenge right now is our subgroup performance, and really looking at that. I was able to attend the ESSA conference yesterday. So we dug really deep into the subgroup performance and how we can start to look at how those students perform and what interventions that we can put in place for them. We also had our district administrator and Albany High School building leaders meeting yesterday, in which we discussed that action plans, which we start again right now for the June regions. We do an action plan for the January regions, and then another for the June regions. And that action plan is implemented by the department, by the English department and the math department, and we do them for the other areas as well. Successes. All right. So I think scheduling has been a great success at Albany High. We have increased equity in scheduling all of our students. I spent a lot of time really looking at this and piloting a few things over the last probably 4 years of doing master scheduling here. And when I showed you that demographics of our students, you can walk into an Albany High School classroom now and it looks like the demographic of our population, which is a huge win. And you know, it was a bit of an adjustment for some folks, but I have to say, it has changed the culture of classrooms. It has changed the way students feel in classrooms. You know, I can say going to high school here and then coming back as a principal, it was an aha moment for me when I walked in the first couple of classrooms. And you can see now the difference by having mixed groups of students in classroom, mixed abilities, and how much students work together more now that we have student schedules by the way our demographic looks. So it's been a huge change in the climate and culture here. Another big thing with scheduling, we know that a lot of our advanced courses also did not match the demographic of Albany High School. We hold weekly meetings with our AP and IB coordinator, in addition to a monthly meeting with both our college and career coordinator and AP and IB coordinator with Ms. Bechtel. So we're constantly reassessing outreach to families, outreach to students on how do we get students in advanced course offerings. The same thing with our CTE classes. And we've figured out, that middle school outreach in addition to high school information for parents, and then pushing into classrooms as well. Academy MTSS. So this is the Academy weekly meetings. They have 2 meetings weekly, so we block out 2 hours per academy to be uninterrupted. The first hour is focused on our 9th graders, and then the second hour is focused on our 10th through 12th graders. In addition to that, my academy principals meet with their counselors bi-weekly, focusing just on their seniors. So there's a lot of interventions going on for our students who are in need of academic, behavioral interventions. And then third, the new academic building. This, I can't tell you how exciting it was, and I really didn't understand the impact that the building was going to have on the culture and climate. The kids were so excited. I know I spoke a little bit about this just in the tours, but actually getting into the classrooms, you could hear a pin drop first period, the first day of classes that Tuesday. Students were engaged. We've been doing a lot of classroom walkthroughs, observations, and getting into classrooms. You always have a few kids who are off task. It's totally different. By 2 of the things I can tell you here too, our first period attendance is up significantly, and our discipline rates are down in just this short period of time. So really interested to see how that fleshes out. And I have to say, the student-teacher buy-in with the new building, there has not been one complaint. Everybody is just, this is so great. The sound and everything has just made such an impact. In addition to, I can really say there is starting to be Falcon Pride now. The kids are very excited, and you can probably speak to this. There's just a sense of pride. We have kids saying, it's like a college, It's totally different. So I'm so excited for the next 5 years and for everything to be finished with the rebuild, because it's already changed everything. So I got goosebumps saying that. It's been great. So without further ado, I'm going to let Leasia speak a little bit about her experience here at the high school and being our senior class vice president.
Hi, my name is Leasia Green. I'm the vice president of the senior class. Okay, so without a doubt, Albany High School is one of the most diverse schools in the Capital Region. With this being said, throughout these 4 years, I was able to learn how to do things out of my comfort zone in order to meet new people and establish relationships within them. As a freshman, I quickly made lots of friends that came from all different types of schools. I remember being so nervous and shy that I wouldn't talk to anyone. We had an assembly meeting which explained the different clubs the school offered, and I'm not gonna lie, I attempted signing up for all of them, but my mom told me to choose a handful because she didn't want me to be overwhelmed, and I'm so glad I listened. Although I couldn't participate in all the amazing extracurricular activities offered here at the high school, I was able to participate in most, and let me just say, they have made me the person I am today. I am currently participating in the theater department's musical theater production for the 4th year in a row, and I have also been on the school's lacrosse team for the entirety of my high school career. Along with many other clubs, I know I can count on each and every one of the staff members and teachers, whether that's talking about how I can improve myself to help a team, or even talking about issues I face at home and how to conquer them. I am so thankful for all the opportunities Albany High has given me, and extremely grateful for all the teachers and staff always willing to extend a hand and be there every hour. They have helped spark my decision to major in early childhood education once I graduate.
And questions?
Thank you very much. During this time, we don't necessarily have questions, but I would like to say that there's so much more to come with our high school report, because on May 7th, we will be presenting our graduation data. And so we are very excited about the information that we hope to share out with you relatively soon. So thank you, Ms. Comerford, and thank you, Leasia, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And board colleagues, I know that Principal Comerford's comments certainly sparked some questions. I'm sure they did. So take some notes, because she'll be back when she talks about the graduation rate, and then you can kind of slide them in there. So now is the time that we open the floor for public comment. I'm just going to, before we do that, I'm going to ask my board colleagues, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda. There was an adjustment to the agenda that we did not catch as we were kicking off. So I would like to entertain a motion to place the appointments, which was item C, after routine consent. And so that is the motion I'd like to entertain. Is anybody willing to make that motion? Ms. Krejci, second by Dr. Chatour. All in favor? That is unanimous. So we're going to move what was previously item C, appointments, following routine consent. So with that said, we are now going to get to the point of our, sorry, I just need to stick this after routine consent so I can remember where it is later. Public comment. We welcome input from the public about all the decisions we are making, both tonight and by email, phone, and postal mail. We have a board policy that sets aside up to 30 minutes every meeting to hear from district residents, parents, students, and other members of our community. We will not be using all 30 minutes tonight, thank goodness. If there are more speakers ever than can be accommodated in 30 minutes, we sometimes choose to extend the length of the public comment period, and sometimes we have a second public comment period later in the meeting. We invite our speakers to stay for the balance of the meeting, and we invite everyone to consider coming to our meetings on a regular basis or listening into these recorded meetings. It's always helpful to us when teachers, students, families, and other community members are knowledgeable about the decisions we are facing and share their thoughts with us. While you are making your remarks, please keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific district staff cannot be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. Also, please keep in mind that public comment is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. We ask that you share concerns first with relevant staff, such as a teacher or principal. If you feel the concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal to that person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent, in many cases, can be appealed to the board, subject to the law. Finally, please note that the board's policy is to not respond during the public comment period. If you need a response, we ask that you consider contacting us by email, phone, or postal mail. When I assure you, you will get a response. When I recognize you, please state your name and your city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Normally, Ms. Wilson is here, and we were expecting her. Ms. Krejci, will you take that over? Oh, I think Ms. Krejci's got it. She's got the official timer. So Ms. Krejci will sub in for Ms. Wilson and give you a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice, and I'll notify you if your time has expired. It is always a good idea to look up at the warning notices so you will not be surprised at the end of your 3 minutes. How do you feel, Ellen? You think you got the timers? Good? All right, one should hold it. Okay, one should do it for you. So we only have one speaker, so this will be pretty straightforward, and the speaker is Kayla Miller. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Switch towards.
Okay. Hi, my name's Kayla Miller. Hi, Vicki. I am the founder and CEO of an organization called STEM Kings and Queens, and I just wanted to thank you all for approving my contract to have STEM enrichment at Phillips Schuyler. So that was it.
Thank you very much for coming. We're happy that you're here tonight. All that work practicing your timers for that. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Thanks for coming so much. We now move to the part of our meeting we call routine consent. During this portion of the meeting, we approve routine matters for the district, including contracts, field trips, personnel matters, and the like. The board members review each of these carefully, but we vote on them as a group with no discussion. That allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Nonetheless, each board member has the option to set aside any routine consent item in order to require a separate discussion and a separate vote on that item. Are there any set-asides? Dr. Tutor? I think I forgot something, didn't I? Yes, I did. I forgot to take the motion. We should do the motion before the set-asides. Is there a motion to adopt routine consent? Ms. Krejci, seconded by Ms. Mann. Now, are there any set-asides? Dr. Tutor?
I'm going to set aside number 9, which is memorandum MOU for Albany Center Gallery and TCCE.
Anyone else? Ms. Krejci?
Yes, I'd like to set aside number 33, Adirondack Basement.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. All in favor of adopting routine consent less those 2 set-asides? That is unanimous. Thank you. And we'll just take these in order. Can I get a motion to adopt the memorandum of agreement with the Albany Center Gallery and TCCE? Dr. Tutor, second by Mr. Elmanyawi. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to this collaboration between the community and Albany Center Gallery in providing new opportunities for our students at TCCE. This is a beautiful example of everybody comes together and is all in for Albany.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. And now a motion to adopt the Adirondack Basement contract. Ms. Krejci, second by Dr. Tutor. Is there any discussion? Ms. Krejci?
I wondered if our council might want to talk a little bit about this contract.
Thank you. This is a contract that was put on the agenda this evening with Adirondack Basement. It's for a little over $122,000 for some repair work at Eagle Point. What I just wanted to express publicly is, although it was not competitively bid, there are reasons for that. The company, Adirondack Basement, has submitted information that Ms. Roaring is satisfied that they are providing a sole source service for this. I've also looked at the scope myself. I think as importantly, there's an emergency aspect to this work that's being conducted. The district just completed a mold remediation project there, and they really need to clean up basement water issue so that doesn't become a problem there once again. So it really fits under 2 exceptions, both the sole source and the emergency action. I'll work with the district clerk, assuming this contract is accepted, just to make sure that's noted in the minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Honeywell, any further conversation or questions about that contract? All in favor of the Adirondack Basement contract? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Superintendent Adams, did you have something you wanted to add?
So, Madam President, members of the board, we are so very excited tonight. We have someone with us in the audience. We have made a decision with regard to our Director of Security. And so Mr. Brad Connors is here, and we would like to say congratulations. And if you have a few words to share, please come forward. Thank you and congratulations.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I'd just like to take a moment to thank the superintendent and everyone involved in this process of giving me the opportunity to be part of this team. and the responsibility which this position holds. It's a responsibility that will have my full attention and will always be taken serious. I look forward to working and getting to know everyone and achieving the goal that I have is to maintain the highest level of safety and security within the school district. It's the utmost importance to me. And once again, I'm very humbled to be sitting here in front of you with this position. Thank you.
I think there's also something to note about Mr. Connors. Where'd you go to high school?
So I graduated in 1993 from this school. Looked a little different back then. There wasn't walls around the cafeteria, and there was a lot of carpet. So yeah, I'm a proud alum of 1993.
Thank you so very much, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. We're happy to have you here. So we are now going to do the appointments that we amended the agenda to place here. So can I get a motion to appoint Erica Boyce for the 3 positions identified on the agenda: tax collector, deputy treasurer, and central treasurer? Ms. Krejci, seconded by Dr. Chator. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Mr. El-Minyawi, do you have an opinion on this? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are now going to move on to our first discussion topic. As is our normal process, we normally do all of our actions at the beginning of the agenda, so it is not expected that the board is going to take any other actions tonight. It does sometimes happen, but normally we do not take actions after we enter the discussion portion of the agenda. So we're going to start tonight with the discussion of the internal audit review, which we would anticipate that we would adopt at our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Good evening. I would like to introduce Joshua. He is here from Marvin & Company to represent the annual risk assessment and special area reports with you tonight.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So first off, just so you guys know, I'm going to be starting on the report that says 2019-20 risk assessment. And I also wanted to say before I dive in that I wanted to thank Kimberly, Stephanie, and their staff just for kind of gathering all the information that we need for it. It is kind of a draining, probably 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it extends even longer process. So we do appreciate the effort that they put in to get us the information. So the risk assessment report itself, what I'm going to do is just kind of go over why the district gets the report, the purpose of the report, and kind of general comments on the report as a whole. And I'm not going to dip into it too much further than that into detail, as we kind of went over it with the audit committee already, and there's 2 reports, and the other report has some good information as well. So on the second page of that report, we kind of go into why the district even needs the report. So that's basically to follow the 2005 school financial oversight and accountability legislation. And that was kind of the purpose of that, is to assist the board and management in achieving its responsibilities to monitor financial reporting risk. Now, how did we perform the testing ourselves? We came in and we sent the business office internal control questionnaires to the district. We interviewed key staff within the district, and we performed walkthroughs over areas that we deemed significant to the operations from the business side of things. And overall, we found the controls environment at the district to be very good, which is always great, and that management was aware of their responsibilities and keeping up with the different standards, and the controls that they have are very important. And then last thing I wanted to point out is it's more of an internal audit, so we're looking at internal controls versus your external auditor, so I didn't want you to get those two confused. So when you read these reports, you won't see as many numbers. This is more or less kind of taking a deeper dive into the internal controls. We're looking at things that are a little more nitpicky. We're diving into smaller areas. Kind of we have less severe findings, while during your external audit, they would identify more of significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, and things that they think really need improvement. While the purpose of this report is more or less just to kind of touch over the whole business office and kind of just give you guys an idea of what we're seeing from best practices at other districts and kind of what we've seen through the rules and legislations. So with that being said, I'm actually going to jump into the second report. I just wanted to give you an overview on what that report is and how you can kind of read into it. The second report is also a part of the 2005 School Financial Oversight and Accountability legislation. In each year, it requires that an annual testing area be selected. So unlike the first report where we're doing more of just one walkthrough, getting an idea over the controls, the district actually selects an area that we do perform detailed testing on and analytical testing on. So this year, management and the audit committee kind of selected the area of overtime pay. And the reason behind this was during 2019 and 20 school year, they implemented a approval process of overtime for the operations and maintenance department. So they kind of want to get an idea of how that was going, compare it to the other departments that might not have implemented it yet. So the rest of the report will take a deeper dive into that. The second page of this selected testing area report just goes into the actual detail testing that we performed and our results. However, I'm kind of going to skip to the next page. That's where I want you to focus your attention on. That's where you can kind of see the numbers and kind of see a comparison between the 18-19 school year, where the operations and maintenance department didn't have this approval process in effect, versus 19-20 when the approval process was put into effect. So at the top of page 3 of the report, it has analytical testing at the top, and it kind of goes into our analytical testing procedures we performed. So what we did is we received a report, an overtime payroll reports from Envision for the period of September 18th through January 21st, 2019. And then we also received a report from September 1st, 2019 to January 17th, 2020. This time frame was selected as first, that's when we came out for our testing, and second, the 9/1/19 is when the overtime process was implemented. So what we wanted to do is make sure when we're doing our comparison that in the year we're looking at there was 10 payroll periods. We wanted to make sure during our comparative analysis that the year we're comparing it to also had 10 payroll periods, just to try to take out any risk of just an extra payroll period having that lead to more overtime hours. So on this report, we kind of have an 18-19 column and a 19-20 column. On here, you can see the amounts paid and the hours paid by 4 different departments. So you have your clerical, you have operation and maintenance, you have security, and you also have another one called other, which is a little bit smaller. The other 3 are kind of the main departments where overtime is earned. And all we're pointing out with this little asterisk is just saying that that operation and maintenance department had the implementation of the new approval process for overtime during the 9/1/19 through the 1/17/20 period, just so you can kind of see that when you're looking at the numbers. So when you're looking at it, if you look into the variance column, anything that has brackets around it means that there was less money paid or less hours paid versus the prior year. Anything that doesn't, there was an increase in the amount paid or the hours paid. So when you're looking at it in total, there was about $100,000 less paid and about 3,160 hours less paid during this current period that we picked from 19 and 20. Then when you kind of look to see from a departmental view, you can kind of see that operation and maintenance is a key factor for that, at least in this period, where it shows that it did decrease about 98,000, and the hours decreased a little over 2,700 hours. Now, there are also other considerations when looking at overtime, just due to the nature of it. If there's more snowfall in one period or the other, if there were more events in one period or the other, and other things of that nature. I think when you kind of look back at the 2 periods, I don't think there was anything that significant that would jump out. So if you're kind of reading into it, I think that the operation and maintenance with the pre-approval process, it might be something to look forward with the other departments, or the district might want to take a closer look into it just to make sure that there wasn't, let's say, way more snowfall last year versus this year. Off the top of your head, you might say, this felt like a pretty cold winter, but you never know when you kind of go back. We didn't go into that much detail with it, but it could be an area to look at. And then kind of the other highlights on that page just kind of go into, we did note in 1819 there was 3 people in the maintenance, in operation and maintenance and overtime that made over a certain threshold, and then the next period they weren't on the list. So it kind of shows again that even if the approval process, because with the overtime pay, there's going to be times where you may not be able to get approval beforehand, just kind of having that as a standard might set something for the employees, the different departments in the district, just kind of going forward. So overall, we kind of, in our general procedures at the end, just kind of we just have the district should look into putting a pre-approval overtime process, maybe looking into doing it all over all the departments. And due to the nature of the overtime, the different departments that you do have, one process might not be the same for another department. So that would be something that you guys would have to consider as a district.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your report. I know that everyone has read it very thoroughly and that the audit committee had some extensive discussion about it at their last committee meeting. With that introduction, does anybody have any particular questions while the internal auditor is here? I think everyone feels fully satisfied at this time. Wait, I have to look behind me. Ms. Smith, how you doing? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for being here and for your work to this point. Thanks so much. The next discussion item is going to be, oh look, the Regents presentation.
Good evening, everyone. It is our pleasure to present to you tonight our 2018-19 annual and cohort Regents exam data. And what a great presentation from Principal Comerford, and so this will fit nicely into her presentation tonight as well. So tonight we are going to present 2 different sets of Regents data. The first set of data Karen will present, and that is the annual results, which includes all scores for students taking the exams in 2018-19 school year, inclusive of August, January, and June. The second set of data that we will present tonight, excuse me, will be the cohort results, which are only inclusive of those students who started 9th grade in September of 2015. So the cohort data is really around the recent graduates of June of 19, but in each of these sets of data presented, we will include our steps towards the continuing improvements that we've been seeing at Albany High School over the last several years. So this data that will be presented tonight includes not only students attending Albany High School, but also those students who are in out-of-district placement. So we have 2 data sets. The data that you saw in the report that we provided through the SBU was inclusive of just those test results at the high school level. This data set not only includes high school, but also those students in out-of-district placements. If a student takes the exam multiple times during the school year during the annual Regents exams, the highest score for that exam counts in this annual data. So based on the 3 test administrations, we maintained or saw an increase in our proficiency rate for 6 out of the 10 exams that you see up here. As you will see in future slides, there are 2 exams where our students' proficiency rates met or exceeded New York State proficiency rates. In 2017-18, the district met proficiency rates for English and actually exceeded the state proficiency rate for algebra by 11%, which is huge. So congratulations, Albany High School. For the 2018-19 school year, the district met the proficiency rate for ELA at 84% proficiency, while again exceeding the New York State proficiency rate by 10% for Algebra 2. Congratulations again, that's huge. In 2017-18 and 2018-19, we gave the transitional exam for global as we moved to the new framework for the global exam. This will be the first year where students in grades 10 through 12th grade will sit for the new framework for the global exam. In addition, they will sit for the transitional exam during regular Regents Week to ensure the greatest opportunity for success. In the next several slides, Karen will present more detailed information regarding the increases or decreases per exam and also the next steps.
Good evening, Board of Education. We are going to take a look at the 2018-2019 annual Regents exams by the content level. So the first one is the ELA Regents exam. Last year we achieved an all-time high of 84% proficient in the ELA exam, meeting the state's proficiency level after several years of hovering around, just around that 80%. Teachers have been really focused on data-driven instruction, vertical alignment of priority standards, expansion of the American Experience class, effective co-teach model, and then shifts in the curriculum to be more culturally responsive. Our next steps are really just a continuation of the work that we are already doing, which includes the establishment of action plans for individual students. This is what the English Task Force is focused on, who still need that ELA assessment. And we look to in having an equitable and culturally responsive practices embedded in all our work. And this is actually something that we're doing across all the content areas. For algebra, we had 60% improvement, which is an improvement from last year, but we are working really to continue to close that gap between our school and the state proficiency. The increase, though, is attributable to the consistent co-teaching pairs and more effective common planning time to plan for the delivery of grade level standards. We're really working on having the teachers be collaborative in their planning. We have a couple years now of our benchmark assessments in place where we are able to look at that data, analyze that data to fill the gaps that we have and to improve. The Algebra 2 Regents data, we actually exceed New York State, as Lori just said. We are at 93% proficiency compared to the state's average of 83%. So this is a highlight for the math department. Geometry, however, we only had that 55% proficiency compared to the state proficiency at 70%. While geometry is not one of the exams required for the regular Regents diploma, we really know that we need to focus on this area and improve this score as well. We're very focused on algebra. Our next steps really include the development of key interventions, targeted interventions in those classes based on data, and really continuing to focus on mathematical discourse. Our math supervisor has done much PD around this. Basically, kids simply don't talk to each other or to the teacher about math. And it is in that discourse about math that children grow in their understanding. This is actually K-12. We are working on, in the elementary level, we call it math talk. At secondary, it's math discourse. But it is the same idea, to have kids express their ideas. It helps children internalize the concepts. The global exam. So the global exam has had really a very interesting journey over the last few years. We had a transitional exam for 17-18 and 18-19 to get ready for the actual exam that is aligned to the new social studies framework. So we will continue to have a transitional exam. This will be the last year for it in June, but we are also rolling out the new framework test. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the context of U.S. history about the social studies framework. What we're really seeking, though, is to give students multiple opportunities for success on this exam so that they can meet the requirement. The global test is one of those requirements for diploma. U.S. history has a 60% proficiency compared to the state proficiency of 77. Our supervisor feels that the dip is somewhat expected as we're focusing on transitioning practices to meet the needs of the new framework exam. The framework the framework in social studies is focused not just on content, which is how we all sort of grew up with social studies, but really those skills. And it's about, and you've heard these before, the 21st century learning skills, those critical thinking skills, those application skills. As we get more and more to be, information is easy to access and get, we need less facts and more ability to use those facts to make next steps. So we are holding the new U.S. exam on June the 2nd, and the teachers have had a lot of preparation for that, but we will, in this case, give both exams as well so that students have multiple opportunities to get their credit for U.S. history. In social studies, our data cycles, our common planning time, PD on these new standards, which are different for many teachers, vertical alignment. My department, Curriculum and Instruction, will be here in front of the board on April the 23rd, I believe. And Mr. Elliott at that time, who is the social studies supervisor and world language, will be here to tell you about his efforts about the 1619 project and embedding that project into the curriculum. He's already done some work this year with the teachers. The teachers have really embraced that work. So you will hear more about that at that time. Science. Science, there are 4 Regents exams in the science department, one of which is the exam required for diploma, which is living environment. I do want to start out by saying that through the efforts of the board, we were able to hire a science supervisor. And this particular individual who comes to us comes with 10 years of living environment teaching experience. We cannot tell you how valuable we have already seen that, and as we expect it will be as Ms. Powers gives her leadership to the science department. We need to get better in this particular area. We had 52% proficiency rate compared to 73 in the living environment, 40% in earth science compared to the state at 69. Less kids do take that exam though. The chemistry is 51% versus the state of 73%. There are less than 300 kids that take that test too, but we want more kids to take all 3 of those tests and even get to physics, where we had a 67% pass rate compared to 82%, and we had a little over 100 kids take that test last year. We are working on the curriculum, we're working on differentiation, paying attention to our L and special education students, the data-driven instruction, common planning time, PD in these new standards, which again represent a new shift. All of our standards have shifted over these past 8 years from not being just content bound, but really this very strong focus on the skills and application. And like anything new, it takes time to internalize that. And our next steps in science really is around continuing to pay attention to the literacy embedded in science so that students have access to the material. And as I said, the data-driven instruction and really those next generation science standards, which are really as New York State science learning standards with a focus on all those pieces that make up the science content area. And I'm going to turn this back over to Lori to talk about the 2015 cohort data.
Okay, I won't go into a lot of detail regarding next steps, but I do have a next steps slide at the end of the presentation data for the 2015 cohort, but a lot of it is very similar to what we are doing for the annual Regents results as well. So this is the 2015 cohort for the ELA Regents exam, and what this data shows is that the 2015 cohort had a 73% proficiency compared to 70% proficiency for the 2014 cohort. So we are increasing the proficiency rate with our cohorts as we increase. We saw 4%. Our proficiency rate increased while the state stayed the same at 84%. So we are closing that achievement gap in the district compared to the entire state. For the math cohort data, the 2015 cohort had a 70% proficiency rate compared to a 67% proficiency for the 2014 cohort. Again, we are closing that gap and increasing the percent of students who are proficient in each of the cohorts as we move through. This was an increase of 6%. So while we increased our proficiency rate, the state only increased by 1% to 84%. So again, we are increasing proficiency at a faster rate than the state. For the global history and geography, the 2015 cohort had a 52% proficiency rate. 62% proficiency rate. I should probably put my glasses on. Compared to the proficiency rate of 56% for the 2014 cohort. Our proficiency rate increased from the 2014 to the 2015 by 6%. Again, while the state only increased by 1% to 78%. Again, closing that gap at a faster pace than the state. For U.S. history and government, the 2015 cohort had a 63% proficiency, which is consistent with the 2014 cohort rate. Comparatively, the state decreased by 1% from 80% to 79%, so we maintained that proficiency rate at the district. Well, we didn't see an increase, we maintained it. For science, the 2015 cohort had a 66% proficiency rate for science compared to 67% proficiency for the 2014. This is a slight decrease of 1%, while the state stayed the same at 84%. In these last two slides, with the slight decrease or no change at all, and we saw increases for ELA, math, and global, we did have significant increases from the 2014 to 2015 cohorts in those subject areas. So Karen had mentioned that we do have some work to do around the living environment and science in general. And so we're hoping, based on our next steps that we've outlined, that we will begin to see an increase in the percentages of students proficient, not only at the for annual test results, but also at the cohort level. So our next steps as we move to graduate our 2016 cohort, and Principal Comerford did mention many of these next steps, so I'm glad to see that we're in alignment, Ms. Comerford. The attendance monitoring, not only at the school level, but also when it comes time to testing in January, June, and August. The constant communication with our families and reminding them of the importance and partnering together to ensure that we provide the best education possible for their child. Focusing on our academy seniors and the supports that Ms. Comerford outlined earlier, Regents review classes after school, the RTI and multi-tier systems of supports by academy, regularly monitoring the cohort data, and I was sharing with Superintendent Adams how excited the district and building leaders are about the amazing work that under Ken's leadership Trish Wolf has done with the graduation dashboard. It has just changed the entire game for focusing on our students and what their individual needs are. So we were super happy to roll that out last night at our what we call our DABBLE meeting, our district and building leaders meeting, to really drill down, which then allows us to regularly monitor the cohort data. And I remember so clearly 4 years ago when I first started in the district and how we were working with a variety of spreadsheets and pulling different data sets together and merging them, and how this has just really, from 4 years ago to today, the difference that these dashboards have really made in making data-driven decisions on behalf of our students. Regularly meeting with school counselors based on interim and report card data, and really trying to identify the supports needed for students to not only be successful in their classes with passing the courses, but also in what supports they need to have in order to do well and pass the Regents exams to meet graduation requirements. And then finally, I say finally, but there are probably many more that we could sit here and list, are the senior online success through APEX, and making sure that, one, there's credit recovery, and then also additional supports through the APEX. So in closing, we're continuing to see the upward trend. These are the next steps that are being implemented this year to continue the upward trajectory of increasing not only our graduation rate, which we will be presenting on in early May, but also the annual and cohort exam upward trajectory as well. With that said, we will open it up to questions that you may have, and we may need to call Principal Comerford up to the table in case Karen and I cannot answer one of the questions.
Thank you very much for the excellent report. In particular, I just wanted to recognize the ELA scores exceeding the state. I find that astonishing and tremendously amazing, given the fact that we had a significant number of children who are English language learners embedded in there, much higher than most areas of the state. So it was really a tremendous credit to all the hard work that you all have done on that in particular. With that introduction, board colleagues, as always, we're going to do one question at a time. Try and prioritize your most important question first, because you might not get time to ask a second one. Who would like to go first? Dr. Chatoor.
Once again, a great job on the ELA. My question is actually on the other document that's online. Andre, can you pull up that other document? It's a Regents summary. So, while Andre is pulling that up, I'll preface my question. The last two slides talk about the Regents passing rate in January 2017 through January 2019 and August 17 through 19. When you look at those numbers, the last two for chemistry and earth science, chemistry basically goes to 0%. Now, is that a data point that's missing? Is that an error, or did no one take the test, or because it went up from, it's page 7, Andre, second last slide. Okay. Yeah. Right. And
I
then
think the distinction here is that where the Common Core test and there was no further test?
What Jody is suggesting, and which makes sense, is that the January exams, it's likely that you wouldn't have a chemistry student taking the test.
that's basically what's democratic. And then the earth science, where it drops from 40% to 8%.
There were single-digit numbers, I think, of the kids taking the chemistry exam, if I recall, and it was to get a higher grade.
Okay.
So it wouldn't have counted if they hadn't.
Okay. But regardless, when they took the test again in August, the rates went up. But I just want to, for my own understanding, what those meant. Thank you.
Who's next? I will add on to that I think it was helpful for me that a lot of the data is available on the NICEAD site, so I could quickly get the N numbers. You referenced those quite a lot in your remarks. So many children took it, or like in this question, how many children. It is always helpful for us when we can get those, the number represented as well as the percentage. It makes it easier to understand what the data really means. When I was on the NICEAD website, one of the things I really like about that is that it shows you all the subgroup breakdowns. It's really quite informative and helpful. I'm grateful to the State Department that we are not having to do that ourselves, right? That they are now providing that information in a helpful way. But I was really struck by, as Jody talked about, the Students with Disabilities number, which I understand has gotten better, but it's still pretty challenged, and I'm wondering what special efforts we're making with our students with disabilities to help them pass the Regents as needed.
So I'll talk from a district level and working with the special ed department, and then I'll pass it over to Jody, and she can speak specifically at the high school level. This year we have pulled the assistant directors and the director of special education and we have them working pretty thoroughly and deeply with the ESSA data, specifically at the high school level and at the elementary and middle level. But we're really looking at how special education students are performing on the Regents exams and also with the graduation rate. not only in district, but also with our out-of-district placed students, and creating an action plan to address those deficiencies. This is the first year that we've really drilled down to that level. Our action plan is not complete yet, but we are focusing that work because across the board at every level, elementary, middle, and high school, from an ESSA accountability perspective, we are not doing well. In fact, when, and I won't go into this too much, but when you look at the ESSA indicators, we are rated 1, 2, 3, or 4, 1 being the lowest, 4 being is where we really want to be, and across the board, our special ed students are, for the most part, at a level 1, with the exception of our a few schools where we have our alternately assessed students, and they're performing at levels 3 and 4. So I'll turn it over to Jody.
So I would say this is probably the third year we have been monitoring our special ed students through an RTI team as well. So that's where we've started to see the increases. So in addition to tracking teachers being responsible for their assigned special ed students, we have oversight of that to ensure that each tracking teacher is doing so. I have one principal assigned to that with our Committee of Special Education chair, in addition to our special ed transition coordinator. And we're getting the assistant special ed director to assist in that process as well. So every 2 weeks they're meeting to look at what students are struggling or need more supports, and they're reaching out to tracking teachers. So we have more oversight. And we've seen that impact. The other thing with scheduling that we've started to see the increases with special ed students in our overall results in those last 3 years is how we have team teachers. We were not able to have co-teach pairs stay the same, and we've been able to do that in the last 3 years. So I think that's also contributed greatly to our increased rates with students.
Anybody else who has a question? Okay, I'm going to ask one more demographics question because I was also struck by the difference between the demographics of the students who take earth science versus the students who take chemistry. When you look at the subgroups, it seems like a different group of students, and I'm wondering what the backstory is on that. As a person of a certain age, when I was in high school in New York State, everybody took earth science. That was freshman year. Everybody took earth science, and everybody took biology as sophomore. That's just the way we did it for the most part. But now it feels like the kids are being really, the academically precocious kids, the strong academically kids are really being strongly encouraged to take chemistry. And therefore, and I think you can see that result when you look at also the result rates, but also if you just look at the demographics of who takes chemistry regions and who takes earth science regions, it's like, it's just not the same. It's not reflective, as you said, Jody, at the beginning. I'm pretty sure I could tell by standing in a chemistry classroom or a earth science classroom which was which just by looking at the faces in
Not
the
earth
room.
science so much anymore.
Okay,
I was in
well,
an
that's
earth
good.
science room yesterday. The living environment exam, if you are really interested in this, but go on and look at the past exams. It is really a reading exam. It is more rigorous in the reading content of that exam than most of the other Regents exams. We've put a lot of supports in our living environment classes and our living environment teachers. If any of the living environment teachers you're talking to about, they are doing reading strategies and test-taking strategies in addition to having to teach the content. It is an extremely rigorous test for that age group. In addition to our special ed students and our ENL students who have failed those exams, then have to take the foundation course for that the following year. So this year I put a lot of supports into those classrooms. I literally took the schedule and looked at the number of special ed students and ENL students who failed the exam and are in foundations, and pushed special ed teachers in there to assist in addition to ENL teachers to try. So I'm hoping this year we'll see some increased results there.
I'm not sure you answered my question, although that was very interesting. I was really interested in the differentiation between earth science and chemistry as to the demographics of the two groups of kids who are taking those two exams are not, it's not the same kids. You see a much stronger population, a much higher percentage of, for example, students with disabilities taking earth science. You see a stronger percentage of kids who are economically disadvantaged taking earth science. It just looks demographically different than the chemistry. And I'm just curious if that is a pedagogical change since when I was in high school when everybody took earth science, and are we now basically telling our college-bound kids take chemistry and don't take earth science? Is that? And I know they're all doing living environment in 8th grade. The kids who are. So I don't know. Maybe I'm saying something that you guys hadn't even noticed before, but I was really struck by it because I was trying to figure out why is the chemistry rate so much higher than the earth science rate when I think chemistry is perceived as being a more challenging subject, and it looks like it's demographically based. Why don't you guys think on that? I didn't mean to ask you a hard question. I thought maybe you would have something that was like you knew about it. Oh, Dr. Wilson Turner has a thought.
Do they have to do that in order to take the higher level science classes? So I skip over earth science, take chemistry so I can take the IB and AP versions of those courses. I don't have time in my 4 years to get to everything if I take the traditional path through science.
True.
Interesting.
So the earth science class would be offered as an additional science classes. The students still have to have 3 science classes, even if they only have to pass the 1 Regents, but they need 3 sciences. So earth science becomes an option for some kids. But to your point, I think it would be interesting to do an analysis of who is in what and why they're being placed there, because we are interested in making sure that things are more equitable.
Thank you very much. I think that was really the core of my point or question. Anybody else who's got questions for our instructional folks on the Regents? And again, congratulations on the ELA number, really fantastic. I really know that you all worked very hard on that and on the other ones that are showing promise. All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on now to the budget, the discussion of the next year budget. So we'll welcome Ms. Kimberly Roaring and Mrs. Adams to the table.
So good evening again, and thank you so very much, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight's budget presentation is a continuation from our first 2 presentations in an effort to keep you abreast of where we are in the budget process. While it is still very early in the process with regard to determining exact numbers, we are still able to provide you with updates as we continue our work in looking at where we are in terms of our reserve funds, revenue, fiscal stress, tax calculation, rollover budget, budget variables, and our next steps. Over the next few weeks, we will be analyzing the impact of retirements and the attrition thereof, our enrollment numbers, and the impact our enrollment numbers may have on staffing. Also, one of the goals that we have in this year's budget process is to develop a baseline staffing ratio for our buildings and our departments. Of course, any staffing ratio developed will take into consideration the ability to deliver equitable resources in a consistent format across our buildings as well as our departments. This established format will consider the needs of schools, students with disabilities, E&L students, discipline, and social and emotional well-being factors. At this time, I will turn the time over to Ms. Kimberly Roaring, Deputy Superintendent of Business and Finance, to provide you with a budget update.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Tonight, we're just going to kind of take a review quickly of where we are. So we'll start with our guiding principles. I just want to reiterate that these are very important to us as we're looking at our budget, what we're going to be continuing, what decisions we might need to make. We keep these at the fore of all those discussions. I want to highlight in the budget calendar the district-led community budget meetings, which Mrs. Adams also noted in her report tonight. They start on Monday the 9th. The second will be on the 10th, and we will conclude them on the 16th. And we are still on track for providing you with a completed budget in early April for consideration.
Just so that the board is aware, these meetings are not taking place of the meetings later on, once we have finalized our recommendation to the board. And what we would be proposing at that time, we would still push into the various neighborhood meetings and community meetings throughout Albany. So these meetings do not take the place of that. It's just simply to acquaint our public with what the process is and where we stand at this particular time.
So we're going to start with a quick look at our reserve funds. The district has chosen to utilize reserve funds and unappropriated fund balance over the last few years as part of our revenue in the budget process. Currently, we have 4 restricted reserves, and we have a unappropriated fund balance of about 1.67%, which is under the statutory limit of 4%. Our restricted reserves are able to be used only for specific purposes with board and/or voter approval. The board has authorized us several times this year to access our tax tertiary reserve to allow us to use those funds that have been set aside for mandated refunds of prior years. And as the public considered our May 2019 capital project, our voters authorized the use of our capital reserve to support the local share of this project cost. When we look at our balances, we have a little over $11 million in 3 different restricted reserves. And our unappropriated fund balances of June 30th was $4.88 million. I also want to bring to your attention that the New York State Office of the State Comptroller has once again done their fiscal stress monitoring process this year, and they looked at the June 30th, 2019 data that all the districts reported to SED as part of our ST3 process each year. They issued their report in the last couple of months and identified that there's a couple of regions in the state that seem to be a little bit more susceptible to having schools experiencing fiscal stress, and we happen to be in the region of the Capital District that's identified. Nearly 88% of those in stress have low fund balances, which you saw on the previous slide, that we are in that position at this particular point in time, largely attributable to the capital project decision that was made to make sure that we could do that work and mitigate any impact on taxpayers. Approximately 85% of those are in a chronic operating deficit. But I want to highlight that we are identified as susceptible to fiscal stress. We are not identified as experiencing fiscal stress. When we look at our revenue budget update from February 13th, we have a revenue increase projected now at $4.26 million, or 1.64%. It's an increase of just under $700,000 over the February 13th number. This is attributable to our finalized tax cap calculation and proposed use of restricted reserves. We'll continue to review and update our revenue over the next few weeks and are particularly interested in seeing the finalized state aid numbers. When we look at our tax cap calculation, this was submitted prior to the March 1st statutory deadline. Our tax cap limit is $120.118 million, or a 1.96% increase. An update on the rollover budget. When we presented to you on February 13th, it was at $275.8 million. We have continued to review our numbers as we indicated we would, and we've realized some adjustments in health insurance, our overtime budget, retirement salary savings. This is strictly salary breakage. We would plan to continue all of those positions at this time. And we reviewed some of our transportation contract information, and we were able to decrease the anticipated expense by $1.66 million. So we are now at $274.1 million. This brings our current difference between our rollover budget and our revenue estimate at just about $9 million. If we were to look at fully funding that $9 million difference at this time with no additional state aid, it would be a tax increase of approximately 10%. Some of our budget variables continue to be the state aid numbers that are not finalized until the very end of March, beginning of April. We're continuing to work with our third-party administrator around our health insurance planned expenditures for next year, which again is very much associated with our experience rating this year. Our tax cap has been submitted, so we have that limit. That doesn't mean that that's the number that we'll be using, but that's our limit. And the tax levy is set at the beginning of April when the board adopts the budget. In terms of our process update, we have completed our individual division budget reviews. We're continuing to have discussions at the cabinet and with our administrators on what our next steps might be and prioritize. Our next steps are to continue to incorporate the new information that becomes available. We're going to be finalizing what our district priorities are. Further review our projections, budget estimates, and assumptions. Continue to respond to questions and any feedback that we're receiving. And most importantly, continue our lobbying efforts.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will say to board colleagues, this is fairly normal situation to be at this time, at this point in the year. We are always looking at having less money than we need at this moment in the year. We're not usually looking at $9 million. That is a very large number, but it is not atypical at this time of the year for us to see that number being a fairly significant one as we work over the next few weeks, and it really is not much more than a few weeks before we actually have to adopt a budget. I did also want to say one other thing in introduction before I open the floor to questions, which is I just wanted to make sure, especially for board members who have not been on the board for that long, that everyone is clear on exactly what the tax cap means. 1.96% is the amount that we could levy on our co-citizens at a 50% of the vote plus one. We could go out for any number we wanted. We could put a 3% budget out if we chose. We could put a 50% budget increase out if we chose. We will not do that, but we could. All that it would mean is that they would have to pass it by 60% plus one. Okay, so it is not truly a limit. I know Ms. Roaring used that term limit, but I don't want anyone to misunderstand. It is just the limit of what we're allowed to do with a simple majority vote by our taxpayers. After that, it needs to be voted by 60%. And perhaps this has always been somewhat unclear after the first 2 years, would have some implications on whether people would receive their cushy check that people have gotten used to receiving, the rebate check that they get because of the way that the governor has changed the process. I'm actually a bit unclear on how that would be impacted this year. Ms. Roaring's looking at down her glasses at me. Do you know?
That is actually something that's up for discussion right now in the legislature as to whether or not it would even continue.
Okay, so there you go. It was at one point the fact that if we did not stay under the tax cap, the rebate would not be offered to our citizens. I do not know where, as Ms. Roaring says, whether that's going to matter this year, but that was a part of the tax cap, original tax cap legislation. Okay, with all that introduction, I appreciate your guys giving me the time to do that. Does anyone have any questions on the budget? Dr. Jator.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment just to remind everybody that this is the rollover budget, which means status quo, and does not include any new mandates or any other thing. So if you have to factor in all of those, you're looking more than the number that's quoted. But again, this is normal at this time of the year.
Actually, let's phrase that as a question, because that was on your budget slides the last time you presented it to us, was this open question about mandates and other required critical elements for the education of our students, and I didn't see that language unless I missed it on this set of slides. Have we accounted for all of that?
At this time, there are no new mandates or things that we need to put into place legislatively, so we don't have anything to report at this time.
So we should not. We should expect, if I'm understanding you correctly, barring some unexpected situation, this is the maximum. We're not going to find out that there's a requirement that we add such and such and such and such, and there's $3 more million.
Unless there is something that is
in the budget,
or it is mandated to us beyond our own control, that then you would not see anything more than what is here now.
Okay, that's helpful. All right. Anybody else have another question? Ms. Wilson.
Good evening. I had a question because I know that we are in the midst of having discussions at the building level about instructional priorities and possibly even some facilities, things that they've identified. Has the already approved sort of work that we established that would be done at New Scotland, at North Albany and other schools, has that been sort of set aside already as like carved out for, or was that still subject to change?
So those projects that were approved last May by the voters are actually set aside. Those are part of our capital fund. They are not part of our general operating budget.
Next question, anybody else? I guess the only other one I have, which I think the superintendent spoke to a little bit, but obviously $9 million is a lot of money. And it is representative of a tax increase that I think it's pretty clear that we could not pass and would not choose to pass. So I'm interested in knowing, in terms of the budget process, when we've gone down this road in the past, at a certain point, a sort of a menu of options comes to the board where you say, okay, we got to find $9 million somehow. We hope that we're going to get some additional state aid, which we will know, we hope, before we have to adopt a budget, although there have been years that that was not the case. And then at what point in the process are you anticipating coming to us with that sort of menu of possible things that we might have to back off on?
We'd like to have that to you by the next board meeting. So over the next couple of weeks, we will be working fast and furiously. We have a principals meeting coming up this week that we will be talking to principals and giving them a little bit more guidance. We have reviewed each division's request, and we will be going through to prioritize those lists of requests to see where we stand.
Okay, thank you. I know that we've been very lucky here in this district over the last several years. We've had good state aid, and we've had a very reasonably comfortable budget processes. So we just need to make sure that we're not trying to make those decisions in the midnight hour. That's when you get the 1 o'clock in the morning board meetings, which we would like to avoid if at all possible. Anybody else have questions for Ms. Roaring or for the superintendent? Okay. Thank you guys very much. We'll look forward for more details in 2 weeks. All right, that brings us to the topic of board committee reports. Does any board committee have any reports for tonight? Ms. Krejci.
Well, we've gone over it actually already on the agenda, but the audit committee met and discussed the internal audit report that we discussed earlier this evening.
Excellent. Anybody else? Oh, Ms. Smith, do you have a facilities committee report tonight?
Yes. Actually, I just wanted to point out that we do have a meeting coming up on March the 10th at 5:30 at Academy Park. And, and I don't really have to report on the last meeting. A lot has happened, including, right on the opening up of the new wing, the new building. So we'll just be moving on from here. But March 10th, 5:30, Academy Park.
Okay. Dr. Chittor.
Policy will be also meeting next week on March 11th at 5:30 at Academy Park.
Anyone else? Then that brings us to the last topic, other business. Anybody have any other business for the good of the order that they would like to raise tonight? Mr. El-Manyami.
I was able to attend Phillips Schuyler Achievement Academy's Black History Month celebration 2 weeks ago. It was very well attended. I loved the little plays, the theater that happened, and I was very happy to go because it's my liaison school and it's the first time I've been there. So just wanted to mention it was an excellent time.
Fantastic. Welcome. All right. Now, I would love to say the magic words, which are, can I get a motion to adjourn? But I'm not going to say that. Instead, I'm going to say, can I get a motion to enter executive session for the discussion of discipline of a particular person? Dr. Chittor, can I have a second? Ms. Wilson, all in favor of entering executive session? That is unanimous. It is not expected that the board will come back to public session. We expect to close the executive session and then close the meeting immediately. So while you can stick in this room and wait for us to come back, it will be a very boring time for you. Thank you very much.